Winter nights have a strange way of magnifying every creak, shadow, and whisper. The chill in the air isn't just from the snow outside. It's the feeling that something or someone could be lurking nearby. Tonight, I've got 3 chilling winter night horror stories that will make you think twice about answering the door, taking late-night jobs, or heading out to a cabin in the snow. So grab a blanket, turn the lights down low, and let's get started. Story 1. The House and the Child in the Snow. In the winter of 2018, a young man named Kevin agreed to house-sit for his uncle and aunt while they went on a 2-week vacation to Europe. Kevin was in his early 20s and saw the arrangement as an opportunity to enjoy some peace and quiet. His uncle's house, a spacious 2-story home, was nestled on the edge of a forested area, far from the noise of the city. When Kevin arrived, his uncle ran through the standard instructions: collect the mail, keep an eye on the pipes to prevent freezing, and make sure the security system was armed at night. But just as the conversation was wrapping up, his uncle added something peculiar. "Oh, and one more thing," he said, lowering his voice slightly. "Don't invite anyone over, and stay out of the yard at night." Kevin raised an eyebrow. "Why?" His uncle hesitated for a moment before brushing it off. "Just don't. Trust me." Kevin chuckled, assuming it was just some eccentricity or overprotectiveness, and agreed. The first couple of days were uneventful. Kevin settled in, enjoying the solitude. He watched movies late into the night, cooked meals he wouldn't normally have the patience for, and even took long walks during the daylight hours. But on the 3rd night, just after 2 a.m., something strange happened. Kevin was jolted awake by a faint but distinct thudding noise. It wasn't the kind of sound you'd expect from a creaky house or the wind. It was deliberate, rhythmic, and it seemed to be coming from somewhere downstairs. Curious, but unnerved, Kevin grabbed a flashlight and made his way down the dark hallway. The house was eerily silent except for the occasional creak of the wooden floorboards beneath his feet. When he reached the main floor, the noise had stopped. He checked the living room, the kitchen, and even the basement, but there was no sign of anything unusual. Assuming it must have been the house settling or some other mundane cause, Kevin returned to bed. But just as he was drifting off to sleep, a new sound cut through the silence. A faint knock, knock, knock at the front door. Kevin's heart raced. It was nearly 2:30 a.m., far too late for visitors. Grabbing his phone, he made his way cautiously to the door. Through the peephole, he saw nothing. No one was there. He unlocked the door and cracked it open just enough to peer outside. The freezing air hit him immediately, and his breath formed small clouds as he exhaled. On the porch, he saw a set of footprints in the snow. They led up to the door but didn't continue in any direction. Confused and uneasy, Kevin closed and locked the door, double-checking the deadbolt. He told himself it was probably a prank, a neighborhood kid messing around, or maybe even his uncle trying to spook him. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The next night, a heavy snowstorm rolled in, blanketing the area in several inches of fresh snow. Kevin stayed inside, watching the weather through the large windows. The wind howled, rattling the house, and the branches of the trees outside swayed violently. At around 2 a.m., Kevin was again startled awake, this time by a sound near the back of the house. It was subtle, almost like something brushing against the sliding glass door that led to the backyard. Reluctantly, Kevin grabbed the flashlight and crept downstairs. As he entered the living room, he noticed movement through the frosted glass door. Standing in the snow, just a few feet from the house, was a child. The boy couldn't have been more than 6 or 7 years old. He was barefoot, wearing only a thin shirt and jeans, despite the freezing temperatures. His hair was matted with snow, and his skin was pale, almost bluish. Kevin's instincts kicked in. He unlocked the door and flung it open, calling out to the child. "Hey, are you okay? Come inside." But as soon as the door opened, the boy turned and ran, barefoot, into the woods. Kevin shouted after him, but the boy didn't stop. Panicked, Kevin called 911. He explained the situation, his words rushed and frantic. The dispatcher assured him that help was on the way and instructed him to stay inside. Within 20 minutes, 2 police officers arrived. Kevin told them what had happened, and the officers searched the immediate area with flashlights. What they found only deepened the mystery. The boy's footprints were clear and fresh, leading from the backyard to the edge of the woods. But once the tracks reached the tree line, they stopped abruptly. It was as if the boy had vanished into thin air. The officers promised to continue their search and left shortly after. Kevin, now thoroughly spooked, locked every door and window in the house and stayed awake until morning. The next day, Kevin received a call from the police. They'd found the boy, or rather, the boy had found them. At 6 a.m., the child had walked into the local police station, barefoot and shivering. When officers questioned him, the boy seemed confused. He gave them an address, but it didn't match any property in the area. Then, he said something chilling. "That's my house," he told them. That man shouldn't be there. Over the next few weeks, Kevin learned more about the boy's strange story. He had been reported missing 3 years earlier from a town nearly 100 miles away. What baffled everyone was that the boy hadn't aged a day. Photographs taken when he went missing were identical to how he looked when he was found. But the story didn't end there. A week later, another child, a girl this time, was found wandering near the same house. She, too, had been reported missing from a nearby town. And, like the boy, she claimed the house was hers. Kevin called his uncle to tell him what had happened, hoping for an explanation. But his uncle avoided the subject entirely, brushing off Kevin's concerns with vague reassurances. Kevin never returned to that house after his uncle and aunt came back from Europe. He moved on with his life, but the memories of that winter have stayed with him. To this day, the house remains shrouded in mystery. Who were those children? Why did they claim the house as their own? And what was it about that yard at night that Kevin's uncle had been so wary of? The answers remain buried in the snow, waiting to be uncovered. Story 2. The DoorDash driver and the stranger in the snow. Snowstorms have a way of bringing out the unexpected. The road's empty, visibility drops to almost nothing, and the world becomes eerily quiet. For Alex, a DoorDash driver in his late 20s, the storm one February evening seemed like an opportunity, a chance to make some extra money while most other drivers stayed home. What he didn't realize was that the storm would also deliver something else, something terrifying. The forecast had been clear. A heavy snowstorm was sweeping through the region, with wind gusts and whiteout conditions. Most people would have called it a night, but Alex wasn't most people. He had been driving for DoorDash for the past year, and storms like this usually meant fewer drivers on the road and higher tips from the customers brave enough to place orders. That night, Alex loaded his car with extra supplies, a shovel in case he got stuck, a blanket, and some snacks. He even downloaded an offline map app on his phone, just in case the cell signal went out. It'll be fine, he thought. Just a couple of hours, a few deliveries, and I'll be home. The first few orders went smoothly. The roads were already slick, but Alex took his time, careful to avoid any sharp turns or sudden stops. Most of the houses he delivered to were in residential areas, with streetlights and shovel driveways. By the time he picked up his fourth order, the snow had picked up considerably. Visibility was down to just a few feet, and the wind howled against his car. Still, the payout was good, and Alex wasn't about to turn down a $25 tip. The delivery address was a house on the outskirts of town, far enough from the main road that he had to rely on his GPS. As he turned onto the narrow, snow-covered road leading to the house, his car skidded slightly, but he managed to keep it under control. Almost there, he muttered to himself. But just as he rounded the final bend, the car hit a patch of ice and slid sideways into a snowdrift. Alex cursed under his breath as he tried to reverse out of the drift. The wheels spun uselessly, kicking up snow but making no progress. He got out of the car to assess the situation, the cold biting through his jacket almost immediately. The drift was deeper than he'd realized. There was no way he'd get out without help. Reluctantly, Alex called roadside assistance. After a few rings, an operator answered and assured him a tow truck would be dispatched. "It'll take about 45 minutes, the operator said. "The roads are pretty bad tonight." Alex sighed and thanked them, then climbed back into his car to wait. The snow continued to fall heavily, the flakes swirling in the glow of his headlights. 15 minutes passed, then 20. As Alex scrolled through his phone, trying to pass the time, he noticed movement in his rearview mirror. At first, he thought it might be the tow truck arriving early, but when he turned to look, he saw a figure approaching on foot. It was a man, bundled in a thick coat and hat, walking toward the car from the direction of the road. Alex rolled down the window slightly as the man reached the driver's side door. "Hey," the man said, his voice muffled by the wind. "You stuck?" "Yeah," Alex replied, keeping his tone neutral. "Called a tow truck. They should be here soon." The man nodded, glancing at the snowdrift. "Want me to take a look? I've got a shovel in my truck back there." He gestured vaguely behind him, though Alex couldn't see any vehicle in the distance. Something about the man made Alex uneasy. Maybe it was the way he'd appeared out of nowhere, or how he avoided making direct eye contact. Still, Alex didn't want to seem rude. Sure," Alex said. The man smiled, or at least Alex thought he did. It was hard to tell with the scarf covering most of his face. "Pop the trunk," the man said. Alex hesitated. "The trunk? Why?" "To see if you've got anything back there we can use," the man replied, his tone a little too casual. Alex's gut twisted. The request seemed off. Why would this stranger need access to his trunk when he claimed to have his own tools? "Don't worry about it," Alex said, forcing a polite smile. "The tow truck should be here any minute." The man stood there for a moment, staring at Alex through the window. Then, without another word, he walked to the back of the car. Alex's stomach dropped as he watched the man try the trunk handle. It was locked. The man stood there for a few seconds, as if considering his next move, before returning to the driver's side window. "You sure you don't need help?" he asked, his voice a little sharper this time. "No, I'm good," Alex said firmly. The man lingered for a moment longer, then turned and walked back into the snowstorm, disappearing into the darkness. Alex locked the doors and sat there, his heart pounding. Who was that guy? And where had he come from? He tried to shake off the encounter, telling himself the man was probably just trying to help. But deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that he'd narrowly avoided something bad. He picked up his phone to call roadside assistance again, just to confirm the tow truck was still on its way. The operator answered quickly. "Yes, we've got your request," she said. "The driver is about 20 minutes out." Relieved, Alex thanked her and hung up. But as he was putting his phone down, he noticed something in the distance. 2 faint pinpricks of light, headlights, approaching from the direction the man had disappeared. The truck pulled up behind Alex's car, and a man in a reflective vest climbed out. "You called for a tow?" he asked, his breath visible in the frigid air. Alex nodded, stepping out of the car. "Yeah, thanks for coming." As the driver inspected the snowdrift, Alex decided to mention the stranger. "There was a guy here earlier," he said. "Said he wanted to help, but he was acting kind of weird." The tow truck driver frowned. "Weird how?" Alex hesitated. "He asked me to open the trunk, then tried to open it himself when I didn't." The driver's expression darkened. "Did he say anything else? Did you see where he went?" "No," Alex admitted. "He just walked off." The driver looked around, scanning the snowy landscape. "You're lucky," he said quietly. "There's been a lot of thefts lately. People pretending to help stranded drivers, then robbing them or worse." Alex felt a chill run down his spine that had nothing to do with the weather. The tow truck driver managed to pull Alex's car free within minutes. As Alex climbed back into the driver's seat, he couldn't help but glance into the woods one last time. The snow had stopped falling, and the night was eerily quiet. As he drove away, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that the man hadn't just been looking for something to steal. He'd been looking for someone to take. Story 3: The Cabin and the Unseen Intruder. Winter vacations are meant to be a time for family, relaxation, and disconnecting from the chaos of everyday life. For the Parker family, a trip to a remote cabin in the woods promised just that: a quiet weekend of ice fishing, board games, and sipping hot chocolate by the fire. But what started as a picturesque getaway soon turned into a nightmare they would never forget. The cabin sat on the edge of a frozen lake, its rustic charm enhanced by the thick blanket of snow that surrounded it. The nearest town was 15 miles away, and the narrow, winding road leading to the property was barely plowed. For the Parkers, Ben, his wife Lisa, and their teenage son Danny, the isolation was part of the appeal. The first day was idyllic. The family unpacked their supplies, lit a roaring fire in the stone fireplace, and set up a makeshift ice fishing station on the lake. Danny spent most of the afternoon snapping photos of the snowy landscape, while Lisa prepared a hearty stew for dinner. As night fell, the wind picked up, howling through the trees like a distant scream. Ben double-checked the locks on the cabin's doors and windows before turning in for the night. "We're in the middle of nowhere," he assured Lisa, who seemed uneasy. "No one's out here but us." But Lisa couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't as alone as Ben believed. The first incident happened the next morning. Lisa woke early, eager to catch the sunrise over the lake. As she stepped onto the porch, she noticed something strange in the fresh snow. Footprints. They weren't hers, Ben's, or Danny's. These were larger, heavier, and they led from the woods to the cabin's front door. Lisa's stomach tightened. She hurried back inside and woke Ben. "Come look at this," she said, shaking his shoulder. Ben groaned but followed her outside. He studied the prints, his brow furrowing. "Could be from a hiker or a hunter," he said, though the uncertainty in his voice was clear. Lisa wasn't convinced. In the middle of the night? In a storm? Ben shrugged, trying to downplay her worry. Maybe they got lost and decided to head back. The footprints didn't lead away from the cabin, though. They just stopped at the door. The family tried to brush off the strange discovery and went about their day. Danny spent hours fishing on the lake while Ben chopped firewood. Lisa stayed inside, but her mind kept drifting back to the footprints. That night, as the family played cards around the kitchen table, Lisa thought she heard something outside. A faint crunching sound, like boots on snow. "Did you hear that?" she asked, freezing mid-turn. Ben and Danny paused, listening, but the sound was gone. "It's just the wind," Ben said, though Lisa could tell he wasn't entirely sure. They finished their game, and Lisa went to bed early. She lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling and listening for the sound again. When it finally came, it was louder, closer. Lisa shook Ben awake, her voice barely above a whisper. "There's someone outside." Ben sighed but got up, grabbing a flashlight and his heavy coat. He opened the front door and stepped onto the porch, shining the light into the darkness. The beam illuminated the snow-covered yard, the edge of the frozen lake, and the tree line beyond. "Nothing. No one's out here," Ben said, though he kept his voice low, as if afraid of being overheard. Lisa joined him on the porch, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. Her eyes scanned the woods, searching for any movement. "Maybe we should go back tomorrow," she suggested. Ben put an arm around her. "Let's see how tonight goes. If anything else happens, we'll leave first thing in the morning." But when they went back inside, Lisa noticed something chilling. The footprints from earlier, the ones that led to the door, were back. And this time, there were more of them. The next day, Lisa insisted they leave, but Ben convinced her to stay. He argued that the tracks could have been from an animal or another explanation that wasn't sinister. Besides, they'd driven so far to get there, and Danny was having such a good time. Lisa reluctantly agreed, but the uneasy feeling in her chest never left. That afternoon, Danny went ice fishing again, setting up his tripod to capture time-lapse footage of the lake. Lisa stayed inside, flipping through a book but unable to focus on the words. Around 2 p.m., Danny burst into the cabin, his face pale and his breath visible in the freezing air. "Mom, Dad, you've got to see this," he said, his voice shaking. Ben and Lisa followed Danny outside to the edge of the lake. He pointed to the snow near the tripod, where a series of footprints circled his equipment. "They weren't there when I set up," Danny said. "I swear." The prints were massive, at least twice the size of a normal boot, and they didn't lead to or from the lake. They just started there. Ben examined them closely, his expression grim. "Could be a prank," he said, though he didn't sound convinced. Lisa grabbed Danny's arm. "We're leaving," she said firmly. Back inside, the family started packing their things. As Lisa stuffed clothes into a suitcase, she noticed something on the windowsill. Smudges, as if someone had pressed their hands against the glass. "Ben," she called, her voice trembling. Ben came over and froze when he saw the marks. "Lock all the windows," he said, his tone urgent. The family spent the next hour securing every entry point in the cabin. Ben even moved a heavy dresser in front of the front door, just in case. That night, no one slept. At around 3 a.m., Lisa heard it again. The crunch of snow, this time accompanied by a faint tapping sound. Ben grabbed his flashlight and peered through the curtains, but he couldn't see anything. "I'm going out there," he said, grabbing a hatchet from the fireplace tools. "No, you're not," Lisa hissed, pulling him back. But Ben was already heading for the door. He stepped outside, shining the flashlight around the yard. The snow was undisturbed, no new tracks, no signs of movement. As he turned to go back inside, the beam of the flashlight caught something in the trees. For a split second, Ben thought he saw a figure standing between the pines, watching him. When he looked again, it was gone. The next morning, the family decided to leave. As they loaded the car, Danny checked the footage from his time-lapse camera. At first, it was just hours of nothing. Snow falling, the frozen lake, the stillness of the woods. But then, about halfway through, something moved. A tall, shadowy figure appeared on the edge of the frame, just beyond the tripod. It lingered there for several minutes, unmoving, before stepping out of view. The family didn't stick around to investigate. To this day, the Parkers don't know who, or what, was outside their cabin that weekend. They returned home safely, but the memory of the footprints, the tapping, and the figure in the woods still haunts them. The cabin remains empty, buried in snow, waiting for its next visitors. And there you have it, 3 chilling tales of winter nights gone horribly wrong. Whether it's the strange visitor at the door, a dangerous encounter on an icy road, or the eerie sense that you're not alone in the woods, these stories remind us that even the most serene, snowy nights can hold unspeakable terror. Winter has a way of isolating us, of turning the world silent and still, which only makes the unexplained seem that much closer. So, what did you think? Which story sent chills down your spine? And have you ever experienced anything strange on a winter night? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed these stories and want to hear more, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I've got plenty more tales of the eerie and unexplained coming your way. And remember, as you cozy up this winter, stay vigilant, because sometimes the quietest nights hide the darkest secrets. Stay safe, stay warm, and I'll see you in the next story.